What's small, gets you excited, and is best when it's tight? Exactly, a close quarters battlefield map. Since DICE cannot recall anymore how a good map design in a battlefield looks like, we, as a community, are now forced to show them. And since many of you enjoyed my last video and requested the same analysis for future maps, today we are going to take a look at the latest introduced map, Hagental Base. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, get yourselves comfortable and enjoy the ride. Hagental Base, an underground jet bunker in the Bavarian mountains, a worthy successor of the Meat Grinder family in the Battlefield franchise. An only infantry map like the iconic Operation Locker or Metro. But can it hold to a similar reputation like those iconic maps? Well, let's take a closer look. Now, unlike the rest of the Battlefield 6 maps, I cannot use the exact same criteria from my last video for this analysis. The iconic Meat Grinder map of each battlefield cannot be treated the same as the others. Even though Battlefield is an all-out warfare game with ground and air vehicles combined with infantry, maps like Hagental Base are still a major part of the Battlefield experience with an unexpectedly large fan base that comes with different criteria and aspects for a good infantry map, and therefore we have to rate it from another perspective. So let's take a look at the first point: size. Unlike a regular battlefield map, which should be wide enough in order to flank the objectives and long enough to stretch the heat zones across the map, Meat Grinder maps, however, require the exact opposite. Obviously. A Meat Grinder is about direct confrontation. No time to breathe, no space to move, and no silence to think. With your friendly's barrels up your ass and the enemies down your throat. The absolute chaos in close quarter fights. That's what players want. Close encounters with limited flanking options, so like all the other maps in BF6, sadly. But in order to still put some focus on objective gameplay, they usually just stretch the map, which has been designed accordingly in this case. So far so good, a very nice infantry only layout. And speaking of layout, let's take a look at the next point, level design. Unlike Underground, Metro or Operation Locker, Hagental Base only features an interior battleground. No mountain path, no city park, no plaza. We just have the main road of the jets that has more or less the same layout for both sides, with a small room, Able and Echo, and a large hall with Baker and Delta. They are all pretty much on the same level that prevents one team from having a vantage point like a high ground. But unfortunately, there are actually two vantage points in favor of NATO. The first one being between the NATO HQ and Able, which is some sort of control room next to the generators that provides a high ground exclusively to the NATO forces, where they have a complete overview on objective Able. Unless a pack soldier places a ladder up to the second floor, NATO forces will most of the time keep the upper hand. Even worse is actually the balcony between Able and Baker. It's not just the high ground, where you have a complete overview of the entire maintenance hall, it also functions as a small nest and bastion. So whenever you capture Baker as packs, you won't just deal with enemies in CQC that are trying to recapture Baker, but also with enemies up there coming from the NATO spawn. Just like in the previous video, the existence of these spots is not the problem, but the fact that they are the only two in front of the NATO spawn is. It should have been on both sides or completely cut out, cause on Rush and Breakthrough and their objective layouts show this exact problem in practice. The objectives are once again completely I need to correct what I said in the past. Now I don't know how they slightly cooked on the Season Pass maps in terms of objective layouts. Here, they have flushed everything down the f***ing toilet. Now I'll just be focusing on the large modes with Conquest, Breakthrough and Rush. Escalation could have been interesting though. Anyway, but since the smaller modes that are available play very similar and don't require much tactics to make a difference, as you're basically running in a circle, I'm gonna skip them. So let's first take a look at Conquest. Objective Able is nothing but a labyrinth with a vantage point right next to it. There's pretty much no cover or a defensive area. The capture area is just around those generators. It's not even the whole room, and it's once again a death trap. Same with Baker. You have an open area with camping positions on the first floor and a little bit of cover on the deck. but it's completely exposed from the balcony. And as if that wasn't enough, we also have a tiny levolution where we can drop a jet hanging from the ceiling right down on a platform. I mean, Baker is basically an invitation to die. Now the worst of all, however, is Charlie. You have no cover at all with a tiny capture area in the middle that comes with a destroyed jet. That's it. Little bit of concrete around it that ain't even high enough to cover you. It's nothing but a death wish. With Delta, it gets a bit better. The objective here is an isolated area with camping spots alongside the shelves. It's better than the others, but it's still trash. Objective Echo is a small labyrinth again, but it doesn't come with a vantage point. You have a wall on the south side that acts as a barrier. And so unlike the other objectives, the enemies can only come from a 180-degree angle. Now on Breakthrough, the objective positions are exactly the same, except you have one more additional objective on the main hangar road that can be pretty hard to capture for the attackers since it lays in the open, but other than that, it's just more chaotic than Conquest. Rush on the other hand is very underwhelming. Unlike Breakthrough that has 4 sectors, Rush comes with 5. Their positions is quite similar to the objective points in Breakthrough, with one exception though, being the first and the second sector. Instead of one MCOM next to the generators and the others in the hangar itself has 2 MCOMs very close to each other and is part of Sector 2. The second MCOM of Sector 1, however, is next to the elevator of the balcony, and that's where things are messed up. As the attacker, you have only 2 directions to come from, the main route and the side path. And if you manage to arm the MCOM, you have 1, 2, 3, and the most annoying 4 ways that you need to keep an eye on. Especially the elevator is an absolute pain in the ass, because it's a secure area with a vantage point that you can access as the attacker only through the elevator. Now on Breakthrough, the balcony is already bad enough. However, with some luck, you can surprise any defender camping up there from behind by climbing up from the back. On Rush, however, the whole hangar is out of bounds, which doesn't allow any type of flanking, which means if only this MCOM remains in the first sector, you'll pretty much always have a defender up there, sometimes even with a spawn beacon, that will maintain constant pressure towards the attackers. They literally keep spawning 2 meters away from the objective. It's basically an enemy nest that can drop the defenders right behind your perimeter line when you're protecting the armed MCOM. And here we have the perfect transition to point 4, the 3-liner rule. Based on a whole map layout towards the middle section, Hagental Base can be considered as a 3-liner map. You have the main road of the jets and a middle section where in practice half the team splits and goes through these small rooms. In practice, players also don't even use the main hangar route but cut through these paths. But in the end, it's still pretty much from the same direction and both forces form a sort of L line in the middle around objective Charlie. Now on every other map this is an issue, as I've presented to you in my previous video. Less than 4 main roads combined with small space doesn't give you any possibility to flank effectively. On a meat grinder map, however, this is exactly what we need. The feeling of smashing the enemy line on that one front line and flanking the other 2 is why people love these maps. And therefore, I'm kinda confused with DICE's map designs, why we, next to the 3 lines, also get an additional sewer system that gives us 2 flanking options from the back for both teams, turning the 3-liner section into a 5-liner. So 5 spots where you can expect enemy contact. Now as someone who's honestly not a big fan of meat grinders, I genuinely welcome it. As for someone like me, it's more bearable to play in such conditions. For the nature of these maps, however, it kinda feels out of place. It dissolves the grind. And the rest of the map is also chopped with multiple paths that look like Swiss cheese, making it very easy to sneak past the enemies and disappear in the corridors. A sewer system like this would be absolutely great on a map like Iberian Offensive, for example. An underground system that splits the lobby into 2 different levels where players fight separately from each other, reducing the chaos on the surface with an additional battleground in the sewers. And with that, Hagental Base is by far the fastest meat grinder map, with many flanking options forcing constant movement and repositioning, which eventually leads to faster objective takeovers and spreading the players across the map, instead of concentrating the front line alongside it. So basically, how every other map in Battlefield 6 should be played. Hagental Base, based on its design, is more like a traditional Battlefield map than any other meat grinder or Battlefield 6 map. And so, how do we dominate on this? Due to constant pressure and enemy contact in CQB, take something that kills fast, obviously. Fast firing guns and shotguns. Destroy the cracks for secret paths on the enemy's side of the map as soon as you break through with your team. It's a nice distraction for the enemy and spreads your assault much wider, which makes it more difficult to suppress you at a certain spot on the way and hold you back. Don't touch anything on your side, however, because you don't want to already create a sneaky path for the enemy in case they're later trying to flank you. Also, you may not have noticed, but there are rocks hanging on the ceiling of the middle section that can instantly kill enemies standing below it. So blow them up when you get a chance. The middle section is also not 100% equal, as the entrance to the maintenance hall features a small flanking route on the left side. So use the little hole as an NATO to guard the right flank, and don't forget to check the spot for enemies as packs. Also, try to go through the main road from time to time. The zip lines can get you near the enemy spawn in a short amount of time, which also makes it easier to flank the objectives at the back. And obviously, since it's CQB, keep pressure on the enemy. You've watched this video, and so now you know better. When you and your team are about to capture the objective, get as close as possible to the choke points where the enemy will come through to recapture it. If you walk past the objective and show resistance to incoming enemies, some of your mates will usually come to help, fighting off the enemy, so the rest of your group can calmly capture the objective without being death trapped. And I think that's about it for Hagental Base. If you got some more tips that should be mentioned, let us know in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. Now if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I thank you very much for listening, I hope you enjoyed the ride, and I see you guys in the next video.